Hey guys, and welcome back to Left on Red. It's your girl Sierra, and today's episode is going to be quite interesting. Okay, we're talking about interracial dating, but only with like Black women, white men. Don't worry, we'll do like a full episode throughout the whole, like talking about it as a topic and the different nuances of it. Um, but this is just coming from my personal experience, where I stand on it, what's going to be next. Okay. Because I have a lot to say as someone who has dated white men for the past 5 years. I have a lot to say. Now, I am really excited because we're going to have a dating coach come on the podcast, and he has all of the stats, the data, everything to back it up on why women of color should date outside their race, where they should be dating, like what cities, where to go. Like he is legit. He has like the science, okay, and the numbers to back it. So I'm really excited for that episode, and that will come out later this summer. But today is just where I stand on it and what I'm looking for next in a partner. Okay. So let's just get right into it. And I want to know what you guys are thinking. Are you guys sitting outside your race? Are you done with it? Are you over it? What's your stance on it? And disclaimer, if you hear anything in the background, like loud popping sounds, it's probably fireworks. So I'm sorry, but hopefully we can get through the episode without any fireworks. But yeah, let's get started. So, interracial dating. Now, I think to start this off, I need to explain like how like when I started dating white guys, then where I stand with it and what I want moving forward. So, the first white guy I ever, I guess, entertained was in 2018. So, now from 2018 till before that, like in high school, I only dated Black guys and Hispanic guys. And not even just Black guys, but like Caribbean guys. So Haitian, Jamaican, Hispanic, Dominican, Puerto Rican, Mexican. I Trinidadian, Guyanese. Like I literally only dated West Indian men or Hispanic men, like, and they're West Indian too, kind of, but essentially like only men of color until 2018. That was like my go-to. I had no issue with them. And besides the obvious things that some of them like lie and cheat, etc. But in 2018, what was happening then was I turned 21. It was my 21st birthday. I was in college, and I have wanted to go to Vegas since I saw the movie Hangover, like when I was like 13 years old. So I was like, I have to go to Vegas for my birthday. It has to be just as like big and extravagant as the Hangover. Like I want to have a great time. And so my best friend at the time, I asked my other group of friends and like so many people, and I was going during like Thanksgiving break because my birthday is the 12th of November. And obviously I was in college, so I had to go during like a break for school, and the next break was Thanksgiving. So a lot of people couldn't go, but my best friend at the time, she was like, we're going to Vegas, I'm gonna have a great time. And she was like, when we go, this is the plan. We're gonna get on Tinder. Mind you, this is 2018. Like back then, dating apps were very different than now. Dating apps now, I feel like, are scary. They're fucking scary. Back then, it was really just like for the most part, regular people looking to have a good time, not all this like gaslighting and like psycho behavior. So she's like, we're gonna get on Tinder. I think Hinge was like fairly new. I don't even think we were talking about Bumble, but those were the two. So we're gonna get on there, and we're gonna find guys, we're gonna meet guys in person. We're gonna just do the whole shebang and have a great time. So Vegas in itself was a blast. And of course, we're on Tinder. We're trying to find guys, to go out with, buy us drinks, whatever. It's like it's Vegas. So I end up getting like a super like from this Irish guy who's like from London, and um he was like, hey, I'm actually staying at the MGM, which is where we were staying. Like he was like, let's go out and like have a good time. My friend's with me. I'm like, great, my friend's with me. And my friend matched with somebody else who she was gonna hang out with the next day. So it's like perfect. Like we have a plan. We have something going on. But into that point, I have never even entertained a white guy. Seriously, guys. And I was telling my friend, I was like, I don't even know if I want to like message him back. Like, I don't really care for him. She's like, it's Vegas. Like, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, listen, what happens on the podcast, what happens in my life comes on the podcast. How about that? So does it stay? No, but it comes on the podcast. And so, anyways, we hang out, have a good time, whatever. And then since 2018, like since then, I have gone out with white guys. Obviously, I talk about the guy in Greece, like what just regular white men here in America. And there is a difference between men of color and white men. And I think my last relationship emphasized the difference. Now, I want to say this. The reason why I just kept dating white guys over and over after was I felt like men of color, I would get with them, we would have a good time, we would talk, shop, whatever. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little crazy. I'm crazy. Like I think every girl's a little crazy. I am crazy. Like I'm crazy. I'm a Caribbean woman. I cannot help it. I'm crazy. And I would say something or like there's something out there, and they would argue back with me. Whereas white guys, if I say something and I'm like upset or I'm like whatever, and like, pre-crazy mode, they're like, oh my God, Sierra, are you okay? Like, how can I help you? I'm so sorry. Like, what can I do? Let's talk it out. Like, oh my God, like so attentive. Okay. Like golden retriever energy. And once I got that treatment, I was like, oh, life, this is good. Like life is good. Okay. So I think that truly, truly, truly is the reason why I go. It is the same thing every time. Now, everybody is different, okay? But that energy of like, oh my God, I want to help you. Are you okay? Like, let's talk it out. I personally have not gotten that before with men of color. They're like, oh, you want to argue? Well, let's argue. And like we have this we have this back and forth and like this like confrontational energy. White guys don't argue with me. Like they don't argue with me. And I very much like that a lot. However, there are so many cultural differences that I didn't think about before. So this is kind of like my stance. So in my last relationship, you guys know like a good chunk of it. Okay. So if this is the first episode you're listening to on Left on Red, just go back a few episodes. You get to see how we met, all of that, the breakup, all of that. So you guys know. I think as you guys know, he is white and he's Jewish. Now, while we were dating, I was telling him a story about a work-related situation, and the work-related situation had to do with another Black woman who I felt like she wasn't helping me, and it was like really hard to gauge. And I would have thought that she would have wanted to be more helpful, but she wasn't. And so I'm telling him this story, and I'm just like, sometimes Black people, they don't want to help their own people. And if you're listening to this and you're not Black or you're not a minority, I know you may be like, oh, stunned, but if you're Black, you know. So it's one of those things, like if you know, you know. And I'm telling him this story because I'm just venting. And he was like, well, I just find that really hard to believe because all the Black women I work with are extremely helpful. Guys, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, what? And he was like, oh no, like he's like, I'm not discounting your story. I'm just saying I just don't think that all Black people are like that. And I'm like, what? Because to me, I'm venting, right? But again, it's one of those things, like if you know, you know. When as like a Black person, and if you're in the Black, you're like, when, and I think this goes in like many different like minority communities, that when you're trying to get help from somebody professionally and they're in the same race as you, and they're just not being helpful, and not because you're not qualified or you can't do it, but they're in a position where they can help you and they don't want to. Again, it's one of those things, like if you know, you know. And of course he doesn't know, he can't speak from that, but it was the fact that he said that to me that it was just like really disappointing that I'm sharing an experience that was hard on me. And his response was like, well, I just don't see other Black people doing it, so I don't, whatever. And then I was so annoyed. He did end up like apologizing, but that was just something I never thought about before. That, and it sounds silly, right? That white people, like, they obviously don't understand, right? But they don't have to look at it in the lens that we look at it, because we're looking at it from a lens where we grew up like this, we know this, and sometimes it just feels like our own people don't want to see us win. But when you're telling that story to somebody who's not in your race, who's not in your community, they don't quite understand or can grasp it or can't even pull from their own psyche because that has never happened to them, right? So that was something that was like really hard for me to be like, you'll never understand. You would just never get it. And I was like, in that moment, I'm thinking, maybe this can't like sustain. Another incident, not with this guy, but with somebody else, another white guy I was dating. He was like, well, I only dated um like women of color before, like black girls, like Spanish girls, and I just can like only see myself doing that, whatever, whatever. And then we were talking about, I was like, okay, so how do you feel about like BLM, the whole like Black Lives Matter thing, like what was happening over there? And he was like, he didn't want to like he didn't want to answer the question wrong, so he was like going around in circles, and he was like, I'm totally for it, obviously, but like, you know, I don't like his answer just wasn't solid enough for me. And I was like, well, maybe you'll understand one day. And we weren't even like talking seriously. We are just like really having a conversation. Like I was like seeing if I liked this guy. And I was like, you'll probably understand one day when you have kids. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you just said you up until this point in your life, you've only dated black girls. You only dated like you've only dated women of color. So I guess one day, if you decide to have kids, then maybe you'll see it through your kids' eyes of the different issues that we face. And I swear to God, guys, he was looking at me like a deer in headlights, like stunned, shocked, not comprehending. Turns out 2 years later from this conversation, he marries a white girl. Totally fine. There's no big deal. Like very generic, like white girl, blonde hair, blue eyes. But up until 2 years ago, he's only dated women of color. And I don't know. I feel like there is a underlying, not issue, but like white men who are like, well, I only date black girls, or I only do this, or like I'm only with this, type of girl, and like they only understand me, comes from a deep rooted sense that they didn't get any white girls growing up. Like how I feel like black men too, like they didn't get any black girls growing up, so they go to white girls. Same thing. They didn't get any play growing up from their own race. And they have this deep like resentment, and they're like, well, I'm only going to take the opposite race because I only like them. And it's like, no, bitch, your own race didn't like you growing up. Maybe you were fat, maybe you're ugly, and then you have this deep resentment, and they try to like hold us to this standard. Anyways, I don't know, I feel like I'm going on a tangent with this, but essentially I feel like you should date people who you like, not because of their race. And I always used to say, like, oh, I have no preference. Like I said, guys, I've dated Haitian, Guyanese, Trinidadian, white, okay, all different types of white, Dominican, Puerto Rican. Like, I used to always say I have no preference. Like, I'll just date whoever. And I'm definitely like, my stance has changed. I prefer a guy who is understanding, who is kind, who is family oriented, who wants love and can receive love, and who accepts me for who I am, and we have a similar interest and mindset. That's my preference. Now, if he's white or if he's black, I don't date in between, as in like mix. I don't have time for that. But if he's white or if he's black, then that is just like, that's whatever. But we should all be dating people who accept us, not tolerate us. So, but with these, not really, but we should. And that is the sentence. It stands as that, period. With that being said, I want a guy that I'm talking to them about a cultural experience and they can say, oh, I definitely understand, right? They can be like, oh, I definitely see where you're coming. Not, and I see where you're coming from because I get it from coming from a cultural mindset. I can see where you're coming from, not because I want them to be like agreeing with me 24/7, which would be great, right? But to say like, okay, I see where you're coming from because it's happened to me, it's happened to my family, happened to my friend. I understand you. Not, oh, well, I've never experienced that, so I don't know. You know what I mean? And I think there are some couples, there are some white guys or white girl, whatever, however you're dating, that can listen to you vent and be understanding, right? Because they don't know, but they can be understanding. So that it's possible. But I don't know if I can get that 100%. Now, before I used to always say, okay, I only want to date a guy from my culture, a guy who's West Indian, da da da, and that my culture, in my opinion, can be very problematic as well. I just want a guy who understands me and can see where I'm coming from. I can see where they're coming from, and we can align culturally. That's all I want. I don't want a white guy who has a whole bunch of black friends and thinks they're black and thinks they can understand me. And then when real world issues happen, they fucking run with their tail between their legs. I don't want that. Nor do I want a black guy who is like, oh, so pro black and da 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 da, and still doesn't understand me. It's all based on compatibility, not chemistry. And I'm going to do like a bonus episode on that. That's so important. But my stance is to find somebody who I'm compatible with, regardless of race, that understands my cultural issues. I feel like I can get that more with a black guy, in my opinion. However, if the love of my life shows up as a white man, then that's just what it is. But I don't think there's anything wrong with dating outside your race, whatever that may look like, right? I'm just using white and black because I'm using my own experience, but Asian, white, Indian, black, whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The only thing is it's gonna come with these learning curves, right? Of I have this experience that they may not understand, and vice versa. And with that learning curve comes a lot of teachable moments. I don't want to always be the teacher for situations like that. I don't. I really don't. But I'm not going to block any type of love coming in, essentially, from anybody. But I think now that I have a more clear mindset of who I'm looking for, it's going to help me weed out a lot of people. So I'm not done with it yet. Okay. I'm not done with white men yet. And I say that with like the longest sigh. I don't know why. I'm not done yet because you don't want to block love coming in, okay? And just because you don't want to do it. But I think now that I have a more defined definition of the type of man I want, and that I do have a preference, I can weed out a lot of, again, and that can even be some black guys too. Some black guys I can weed out. I don't even like to date black American guys. I like to date Caribbean guys. That's how specific I want to be. But like I said, if a white guy comes along and again, we match and we are very compatible, not just chemistry, but we're compatible and they're understanding and they're all of these things that I named earlier, who might be like, oh no, I can't date them because they're white. No, you never know. But it's important to keep that out there. So I want to know from you guys, have you guys dated outside your race? Okay. Outside of this, just black, white, whatever. I want to know, have you guys dated outside your race? What are the learning curves for you guys? Because I know for me, that was a big learning curve. And how are you getting past it? What's new? What's next? Because I'm at the point where I'm like, I want my person to fully meet me where I'm at in my capacity, culture, and mindset wise. So I want to know, where do you guys stand? What are you guys doing? Are you guys willing to have these teachable moments, big or small? And I'll leave off this episode with one more example. The last guy I was dating, he was sick. I brought him over some soup and I brought him some Vicks. Guys, I swear to God, he had no idea how to use Vicks. He literally held a jar and was like, what do I do with this? And I had to show him how to use Vicks. I was shocked. I was shocked. I was mind blown. Okay. Ideally, I would love to just date someone that knows what fix is ginger ale soup, not soup from a can, soup like homemade. Like, I want to meet somebody at that level. Okay. So, where are you guys standing on interracial dating? Is it a no? Is the yes? What do you think? All right. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, guys.